Hello everyone, I'm Carrot X and today I would want to show you all a collection of my books so far. So, I love history, I love dinosaurs, I love anything that's got to do with literature. So these are all the books I've had so far. This is a big history encyclopedia, which I must have got over like 8 years ago. I love reading things about history. This is a book about the Mesozoic era and the evolution of the dinosaurs, written by renowned paleontologist Steve Brasadi. And uh, I love this book for giving me the most up-to-date information about how the dinosaurs evolved and lived, as well as their world. And here are all my many other fiction books. Here are all the books I've had, which are mostly in the fiction genre. Here's this one, this one, this one. The rest I consider to be high fiction. So, any of us may know what these titles are, but they offer important critiques about the society and culture of the past era. This one is not. This is written in 2016, but still is heavily inspired by the Second World War. And this is an actual novel written by someone who actually lived through the combat of the war itself. And this is the sequel to the 2016 book I was talking about, which was made in 2017. And finally, we get to see George Orwell's classics, Animal Farm, and then we've got 1984, and finally we've got the children's novel from the 80s, which inspired Hayao Miyazaki to make his animated film which was released in 1989. And now we're going over to see my collection of books about Hayao Miyazaki. So I've been a big fan of Hayao Miyazaki ever since I was like in middle school or so, as I began to appreciate his movies and his artistry a lot more than all the corporates of the Disney and DreamWorks have been, all these other major Hollywood studios have been producing over the past 25 years or so. And I started to appreciate Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli a lot more than Disney for taking even more ambitious risks with the medium of animation and the storytelling potential of it. And I've actually all this little collection of books about the author's works I want to share with you all. So this is Studio Ghibli Architecture and Animation. It's easy here. This is mostly a collection of concept sketches about all the different buildings and other stuff that are prominently featured throughout Miyazaki's and Studio Ghibli's films. It particularly takes a look at all the architecture of each film and the background information and all the research that went into developing all these settings, like houses, castles, palaces, parks, gardens, etc. It's definitely a must-read for anyone who's a fan of Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli. As you can see right here are all these different sketches of the houses and the homes. And now we're gonna go have a look at the art of Howl's Moving Castle. This movie has got quite a big cult following among Miyazaki's other films, partially because partially because of its romance plots, and also because for its quirky characters like Calcifer the fire demon, Marco the little boy, Keen the dog, the scarecrow, and of course Hal himself, which basically makes this entire movie something like Studio Ghibli's answer to The Wizard of Oz. In some ways, you can see here, this book contains all the concepts, art, and sketches, and the entire development process that went into the creation and development of this film, from its conception back around 2001 up to its release in 2004. So here are the storyboards you can see here, and you can as you see the whole opening sequence is meticulously drawn, and this is the iconic scene in the that every fan of the movie remembers. How is carrying Sophie on it through the air over the market town at the beginning of the movie. Here's the concept art of the castle itself, and all those opening shots you can see right here, and you can see all these concept sketches and illustrations that the animators at Studio Ghibli made were eventually used for creating the final film itself. And all these concept art and sketches also were used for these individual shots and the designs of individual characters. So here's a character sheet of many of the famous characters from the film. Howl's just standing in center. And these are the background landscapes. This is how Howl's castle was made. These are all the individual parts that were used for creating this CGI object, which nonetheless has all these 2D painted textures and shades, which gives the illusion of being used for a 2D animated production. This is Calcifer. They're in the various shots of Calcifer, the fire demon, talking. So yeah, this book is definitely a must read for any Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli fan out there. And now let's move on to my other Miyazaki book that I have got in store. So this is a book about Hayao Miyazaki, which is published by the Academy Award, by the Academy of Motion Pictures, which is the company, which is the people behind the Oscars, which came out in 2021. This book talks about Hayao Miyazaki and his animation and arts process. And you can see here, this is a shot from I Never Totoro, and there's the introduction, and you see all those concepts, art, and sketches that Miyazaki has drawn for all his animated productions, which eventually came to be used for his films. Like this art, these concept sketches here, that became the basis for his 1992 film Porco Rosso. And Princess Mononoke too. As you can see, this is the at the at the beginning of the movie where Ashitaka is climbing up the watchtower, and the boar god rampages. This is the tower from Spirited Away. This is the bathhouse, actually. Here's how this castle and all these many other concept sketches that were eventually came to be used for all his animated feature films. So this book talks basically about how Miyazaki's career history, his philosophy, and his art processes behind the creation of all his animated movies. So this book is definitely a must read for any Hayao Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli fan out there. I would especially love it if any of you in the comments says that they own this book. So there's a conceptual sketch for his film Castle in the Sky, which was released in 1986. And this passage talks about Miyazaki's creative process, how how his creative process drives the creation of his animated movies and his characters and all that. You got many more concept sketches, including that of Kiki and GJ all there. And there's concept art for Princess Mononoke. Here's Ashitaka and his elk Yaku. And here's a color chart. Here's a color chart for Kiki, which shows all the different hues and shades that came into coloring her for the animated movie. And here are the other few Studio Ghibli books I've got so far. This book was actually authored by Studio Ghibli themselves, and it's basically an official guide to all their movies before the release of 2023's The Boy and the Heron. You can see the cover features all of their movies they've made since the release of Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. And believe it or not, I've actually seen all of Ghibli's films, including The Boy and the Heron, as well as the short film On Your Mark, as well as including the Ghibli's too, which is this little short film about the creation of Spirited Away, which is like a humorous day-to-day movie about the Studio Ghibli staff. Here we go. This shows like how a layout of the pages, the individual descriptive pages for each released film, and the content. So this shows there. So this shows Miyazaki's son girl Miyazaki working on Studio Ghibli's first 3D film, Earwig and the Witch. And now here it is. 2020's Earwig and the Witch is by far Studio Ghibli's most divisive film. Not only because it's computer animated like most of the studio's 2D films, but its story is also very, very lackluster compared to the other films they've released. I might think it's still such a cute, funny film. A film that tries to take Studio Ghibli one step forward in the medium of animation. So here's the entry page for Ghibli's history, and now we go on to see Toshio Suzuki, and now we're gonna. This is like the development for this future Ghibli Park, which opened in about 3 years ago. Now we're going to. Now we're gonna go on to all of Ghibli's film works, all of the work Studio Ghibli has made before the release of The Boy and the Heron. And here we've got Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, the film that's birthed the Studio Ghibli. Now we got Castle in the Sky, the first Ghibli movie. This movie is gonna celebrate its 40th anniversary next year, and I'm very, very excited for that. So now we go into My Neighbor Totoro, the always beloved characters of Totoro and the Cat Bus. Now we see Grave of the Fireflies, Isao Takahata's magnum opus. It shows that animation is capable of telling much more complex and mature stories than simple children's entertainment, but that doesn't have any emotion. Now it shows the brown pages show like shows features. So now the brown pages of this book show features of the Studio Ghibli catalog. So these brown pages show features that Studio Ghibli, so various elements that the company has featured in many of its films, like castles, you get airships, and now we got Kiki's Delivery Service with the always ever cute Kiki and her cute cat Gigi, and now we see all the posters. Now we see Isao Takahata's Only Yesterday. And then we see Porco Rosso. We got Flight. So like many of the other brown pages, these colored pages show individual elements that Ghibli has depicted in all of its films. Here, all the characters are shown flying in nearly all of Ghibli's, especially Miyazaki's films. And that's because Miyazaki was always fascinated with airplanes, and his father worked at an aircraft company during the Second World War. Now we got Only Yesterday, the first Ghibli movie made by neither Miyazaki nor Takahata. In its 30 years of release, the film has got even more love in its native Japan for depicting the youth culture of Japan in the 90s. Here's Takahata's Pompoko, which is about this quirky family of raccoon dogs that try to fight off the industrializing humans, but they fail. And right here, got the posters. We got Whisper of the Heart, which is currently celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. It came out in the same year as Pixar's Toy Story. What a coincidence. And its creator tragically died of some cancer a few years after the film's release. So this movie is very emotional, especially in regards to the man who created it, why he made this film in the first place. Here's Miyazaki's short film, On Your Mark. It features this strange mix of fantastical and sci-fi elements. This is also the only Studio Ghibli work that tries to incorporate straight-up sci-fi elements with its futuristic setting and technology, also contrasting with the fantastical angel character. Now we got one of Studio Ghibli's magnum opuses, Princess Mononoke. This film actually brought Ghibli on the world map as a leader in animated stories that have depth, emotion, and humanity. And this film is one of Miyazaki's most critically acclaimed films so far. I love it for its action sequences and its themes and its complex, nuanced portrayals of the human and animal characters. We're moving on to these posters made for the movie. My Neighbors the Yamadas is Isao Takahata's most lighthearted movie so far. And then we go on to see Ghibli Draw Speed and Spirited Away. That's a favorite among Miyazaki's fans of the West. It's one of his most popular movies alongside the likes of My Neighbor Totoro, Castle in the Sky, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Princess Mononoke. We got The Cat Returns, which is in many ways made by Hiromasa Yonebayashi, and it's basically like Ghibli's answer to Alice in Wonderland, but with more cats. So we got all those posters right here. We got The Giblets Episode 2. Then we got Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of Miyazaki's popular movies because of its quirky characters and its emotional romance plot about how which undergoing character development and from being this vain man into wishing to protect Sophie, and in turn for Sophie being kind towards him. So here are the posters for the movie, and this is all the intense action and fight sequences depicted in Ghibli's movies. This is Tales from Earthsea, Goro Miyazaki's first movie. You can see all the posters here. And this is Ponyo on the Cliff by the Sea, one of Miyazaki's more lighthearted adventures. It's basically his retelling of The Little Mermaid. So here are the posters, and we got an Ariete, another Yonebayashi film. This movie celebrated its 15th anniversary this year. Here we see in the posters, we see Goro Miyazaki's From Up on Poppy Hill. And this is a beloved thing that many viewers love of Ghibli's movies, is because all the characters, their food is depicted in such a glorious light that the viewers wish they want to eat the food that's presented in the movies, especially the bacon and eggs from Howl's Moving Castle. Now we got Miyazaki's philosophical movie, The Wind Rises. And the posters for that. Takahata's Detailed Princess Kaguya, the final movie he made for Studio Ghibli before he passed away in 2018. Marnie was there. And then we get Aiko Dubut's The Red Turtle. And this is another famous feature that many viewers love about Ghibli. It's because of how the way the studio's movies depict the environment and nature. That's why Ghibli has been beloved by many artists and other people who consume Ghibli's films just because of its gorgeous, beautiful scenery. They wish they want to retreat back into nature again, explore the woods and the wilderness once more, or Totoro, or the deer god from Princess Mononoke. So these are the two co-founders of the studio, Miyazaki and Takahata. Sadly, the guy at the right, he's no longer with us since he passed away about 7 years ago. And these are their statements about each of the movies they made so far. And now we're gonna go on to another Studio Ghibli book I've got as part of my Ghibli book collection. And it has entries for all the Ghibli movies that the complete works has covered. But it has this time with an extra entry on The Boy and the Heron, which came out 2 years ago. So here is Ghibliotheque. And you can see here, it's basically this unofficial guide to the Studio Ghibli movies. And here we got all the entries for his movies so far. Now we're gonna go over to see. Well, no, we're gonna skip over to see The Boy and the Heron. Here's Whisper of the Heart. Happy 30th anniversary, Whisper of the Heart. And this is one of the only Studio Ghibli movies that has an unofficial sequel in which the Baron character in this movie later appears in The Cat Returns and guides a certain unknown girl into his world. We come face to face with Sen and her wolf. And we're gonna skip over to see. Here's No Face and a replica of the bathhouse. It's just as intricately detailed as like any miniature or of Barad-dûr or Minas Tirith from the Lord of the Rings or Hogwarts Castle, for that matter. Just how much artistry they've put into realizing them. Just look at the artistry they've put into making the bathhouse look like a real building, except it exists in a different world from ours, the spirit world. We're gonna. Here's Owl's Moving Castle. And all the quirky characters of Howl's family. Now we're gonna move on to The Boy and the Heron. Here it is. Studio Ghibli's latest movie, and the second movie so far from Hayao Miyazaki to receive an Oscar, something which Demon Slayer never managed to do. This shows this shows how significant Hayao Miyazaki is as a filmmaker with an artistic vision of his own. And this movie is about world creation, about choosing your own destiny. And this traumatized 12-year-old boy embarks on a magical, whimsical journey with a with a goblin who wears a heron costume to find his mother trapped in a different world, the world of this guy, Oji-sama. And this is the Parrot King who rules the Parrot Kingdom. I think he's certainly much more of a better, well-written, portrayed anti-hero than Magnifico from Disney's Wish, which came out a couple months after this movie. And it's hard to believe that the movie Disney was trying to promote for its landmark 100th anniversary actually lost the Oscars to this 2D animated movie made by none other than the country's most legendary animator himself. We should all show our respect to the GOAT. And this is the end of the book so far. And now we're gonna go over to the three more books I've really wanted to share. So here's The Journey of Shuna, an original story that Hayao Miyazaki wrote and drew himself back in the 80s or some, and which he never actually adapted into a movie. But this graphic novel or illustrated story actually serves as a testament to the animator's unique artistic and storytelling vision. You can see all the blueprints for Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, and Princess Mononoke put into this particular story, especially with all the character designs and the aesthetics. It actually feels like as if this particular work is set in the same world as Nausicaa or Mononoke. Even the little girl kind of looks like a 9-year-old Nausicaa. And the elk that's the main character is riding looks like a precursor to Yakul, Ashitaka's steed. And I really love this story for containing all the themes about environmentalism and the destructive nature of humanity that the Miyazaki would later incorporate into many of his future movies. And here's a book called Hayao Miyazaki's World Picture, written by scholar Danny Cavallaro. It talks about the philosophy behind Miyazaki himself and his films. So there are chapters dedicated to individual aspects of Miyazaki's philosophy, how he views children, how he views the entire world around him, how he views nature, and much of the book is talking about how Miyazaki is trying to create a mythology of his own that he reflects through all his movies, a profound mythology that people of all ages can actually relate to. And now we got this cute little picture book about Ghibli's mascot, My Neighbor Totoro. Ghibli's mascot. So this little picture book is about this picture book literally takes individual shots from the movie. It's basically like the entire movie condensed into picture book form for anyone of any age to read. And the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place is because Studio Ghibli is currently celebrating its landmark 40th anniversary this year. And since then, the studio has gained a huge international following with its emotional stories, with its quirky characters, and its themes that transcend time itself. And this is why I consider Hayao Miyazaki to be my favorite animator so far. And right now I'm currently working on a story that is meant to be a tribute, an homage to his works, and reflects his philosophy. And that's why I want to share you all this collection of Miyazaki's works through book form, since I really love the animator so much for his stories and everything he puts into all his works. And my story that I'm working on is meant to be my own love letter to him, which reflects all his themes and the philosophy he puts into all his major works of art. Needs to get his teeth brushed. Here comes the cat bus. This is what you'll get if you cross the Cheshire Cat with a school bus. And imagine, sometime in the distant future, the kids will be talking about taking the cat bus to school. Just imagine that. The most whimsical experience for a kid ever. This is over the past 40 years, Miyazaki's movies have mattered so much to us because they contain themes that still resonate with us even into the 21st century. Themes like the destructiveness of war, the need to preserve the Earth's fragility, and love and family. Even if you don't have any physical family members of your own, these are all the themes that new generations of people growing up in the 21st century can actually still relate to in all his works of Miyazaki's works of art. So, and so do I as well. And last but not least, I wanted to show you all a collection of my little Miyazaki related merchandise so far. So this is a pencil stand of Kiki, and she's standing, which was made like around 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago, and she's standing alongside a card set which features scenes from her movie. And here's a little figurine of Totoro with his umbrella. And this is an equally bigger 3D puzzle of Totoro himself. And you can see Totoro, the big Totoro is here. And I've actually made it myself. And I've got all these presents for Christmas a couple of days ago because of my love for Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli that I want to reflect in my works of art as well. And right under everyone's feet here is There is, I've got two bookmarks of Totoro. One is from. I've got two bookmarks of Totoro so far. Right here. And right under everyone's feet is this big puzzle of the character and his friends. And it's a 500-piece puzzle that I've got for Christmas among all these other gifts right here. The big Totoro and Kiki's card set. And many people, and Toshio Suzuki himself says that Totoro is the one big work Miyazaki cannot topple, because all the films he has made so far cannot match the spirit and the heart and the production that went into Totoro. So Suzuki states that none of the other films Miyazaki has made so far, like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and Howl's Moving Castle, can topple Totoro in greatness. So this is basically all of the entire Miyazaki collection I wanted to share with you all so far. And the main reason why I wanted to make this video so far is because Studio Ghibli is currently celebrating its 40th anniversary, and I just wanted to show y'all the intense love and passion and devotion I actually have for this esteemed animator and storyteller who is Hayao Miyazaki. And his artistic vision, philosophy, themes, and storytelling I've honored for my message of hope in times of darkness and despair, that is The Sorceress of Leaf and Sand, which is currently celebrating the 10th anniversary of its conception this year. So I wish y'all a happy new year, and I'll see y'all next time.